by talking about Manchester United because, Janusz, 2024 was seemingly going well for them, and then it all came crashing down at Fulham. And so here we are again asking questions about Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, look, where do we start here? I mean, this team is not going to get you anywhere anytime soon. And, I hear, tidbits about where they are from Ten Hag. I think they're at a crucial moment. A lot of it is positive in a way that we have a new CEO, we have a new investor in Jim Ratcliffe, or Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Pretty soon there's going to be maybe an exciting director of football. And, that should follow with a new manager, a clean slate. There's all kinds of issues with the players, some of them not easily solved, obviously. But the way I look at it, half the team, if not more, should be gone.
So after that loss to Fulham and the way it happened, Ryan, obviously, Harry Maguire just got them back in it, and then they concede that late winner from Fulham. Ten Hag has baffled a few by what he had to say afterwards, and he said you have to see the bigger picture. The bigger picture looks very good. What's he seeing?
I don't know. He needs to get his eyes checked or something. His comments recently just feel increasingly disconnected from reality. They were terrible against Fulham. Like they came back and tied the game, but he claimed that they deserved to win the game and deserved to draw. And I think at the same time, he's in a hard position because the team is terrible and he's under new ownership. But yeah, he's just constantly talking about how, Ineos will have to listen to what he wants in terms of the players he wants. He would never coach players that were signed that he didn't want. Meanwhile, Antony was the biggest signing he made, and he doesn't play him at all anymore, outside of a handful of minutes each game. So yeah, I don't. In some ways, I feel bad for Ten Hag because it's like it'd be a shock to me if he was still the manager next year. And yet they have new owners. He has to go in front of the press every game. He has to sort of fight for his job. So I guess he has to claim that the big picture is better because obviously the immediate picture is horrible. Like they've given up as many goals as they've conceded. So if you want to make your case to your bosses, you have to say that the long-term picture is working because the short-term picture is complete disaster.
And obviously, we've got to look at the long term here, Janusz, as well. And I see you shaking your head because you've even touched on it in your opening piece, talking about cleaning house here at Manchester United. But how do you find this balance here to find the way back for Manchester United in using the status of the club and the history it has, and actually not being scared to almost start with a clean slate?
Yeah, I mean, reality is such with the financial fair play, that maybe some of the things that you want to do, you can do. I get that. But if we just forget about this for a second, right, just to address the bigger picture, that game against Fulham, I think was everything wrong, that we see with Manchester United in one game, right? Here comes Fulham. They were counterattacking Manchester United for fun. We saw Manchester United. So here's the bigger picture. We saw Manchester United that can't score goals. They can't defend. They can't press, right? And then I'm looking at the bigger picture because, the patience, some of the younger players are coming good, which is true, right? But that's a lot of pressure on Højlund, who didn't play, obviously, and maybe Garnacho and certainly for Kobe Mainoo. Let's give him a time. I hope he can replicate that for more than, this season. But let's just assume that he does. So the bigger picture is we have Johnny Evans, Varane, Lindelof, and Maguire. These players are not getting better. It's impossible. We've seen it from Maguire. We've seen it from everybody. They're done. They're not going to get you trophies. Even Lisandro Martinez, you can have some questions because defensively, he loves to go in the midfield. But I'm not going to get into that. In the midfield, who do you have? You have Amrabat, Eriksen, and Casemiro. Those players are done at the higher level. We're talking Manchester United here, by the way. So the highest level is to win the highest trophies, not a Carabao Cup or anything like that, right? So and then you have Antony and Rashford, who, in terms of mentality and character, I'm not sure if they're good enough. So, and I've just mentioned a few. So, what is the bigger picture? How are you going to get that better? So, in the immediate time, I'm not saying that there's going to be a manager that going to comes in, but here we are talking about that clean slate where at least you understand that there's a massive problem with that, and there's a massive rebuild in front of them, and there's 2 or 3 teams that are in the process of doing that, and you're not going to catch them within a season or two. It's just not going to happen.
Janusz, let me stick with you a moment. Talking about that clean slate, is Bruno Fernandez your captain in that clean slate?
Well, I'm not in that dressing room. I saw that. Remember that tweet or whatever it was, Instagram post from who was it from? I can't remember. One of the key players posted a few months ago saying that you're not a captain material. So I think it was De Gea, obviously, and that's sour grapes from him, maybe. But I just don't think that players go on the limb to do that. I don't like his body language, but I still respect him as a player. I still think that if you take everything into an account in a properly functioned team, he is a creator. He's a difference maker. So he is an important part of that team. I don't know if he's a captain. I doubt it. I also don't know if you may have to sacrifice him, right? Because the reality that we didn't mention in that clean slate is that sometimes you have to sell players like him in order to get some money. And there'll be people that will pay big money for Bruno Fernandez.
Okay, on the more positive side of things in Premier League talk, Arsenal are certainly on the up. In fact, Bukayo Saka is the subject of your latest article, Ryan. It's just gone up an hour ago. So once you guys have finished watching this, if you haven't already checked out our website, go and see that. What inspired you to write this? Tell us more, Ryan.
Yeah, I think Saka he's sort of had like a pretty frictionless rise in English soccer, right? He becomes a starter at Arsenal at 17, plays as a fullback, then he becomes a winger, very quickly becomes Arsenal's most important player, and then starts at the 2022 World Cup for an England team with a ton of attacking depth. But I think this always happens with younger players, right? Where they're just playing all the time, they're playing at a high level. We kind of just like assume that this player is sort of in the upper echelon with all of the best players in the world, basically. And I think Saka's like his reputation maybe exceeded his level of play a little bit. Like he has never produced goals and assists, I guess, at the rate that you sort of want from like what you would consider a world-class winger, let's say. And his performance this season in terms of just like goals and assists, which obviously isn't everything, is basically the same as last year. But I think if you look at kind of the number of chances and he's creating and shots he's taking, it's way up from last year. And two, if you look at the rest of the Arsenal team, what's happened this year is they're like one of the best defensive teams, I think, in like the last 15 years of the Premier League. And part of that is because they're playing a much more deliberate, slower style in possession. And pretty much everyone else on Arsenal has not put up the individual statistics they put up last season, while Saka has sort of maintained his output. And so I think like what I'm kind of left with is like, I think Arsenal, they're right in the title race with 2 awesome teams. They're only 2 points back. There's nothing really to separate the 3 teams, in my opinion. And that's with like a super sturdy defense, and then Bukayo Saka being your best goal scorer and your best creator. So like, I think maybe because I'm just a weird nerd that looks at soccer in a different way than everyone, but I think he's like quietly, like maybe officially become a superstar this season, but we haven't noticed it for a number of kind of little contextual reasons.
So really here, maybe we can be saying with Arsenal, the bigger picture looks very good, and we can't criticise a statement like that if it were to be about Arsenal. Do you think, Ryan, from everything you've been looking at and from the way you're viewing soccer, that this Arsenal side is on the cusp of greatness, bigger than just the title this season, looking bigger picture, looking ahead under Mikel Arteta?
Yeah, like I don't think they're going to win this season. They definitely could, but just mainly because they're in 3rd place right now. And like these teams are both really good that are ahead of them. But I would be very surprised if Arsenal don't win at least one Premier League title over the next, say, 3 or 4 seasons. They're the 3rd youngest team in the league. Arteta has clearly instituted a very clear approach, which I think is credit to him. It's a very unique style. And like they seem to be committed to, in contrast to Man U, who constantly sign players like Casemiro, Rafael Varane, Christian Eriksen, that are these like, oh, this one guy will put us over the top. Arsenal have just been signing 24-year-olds basically for the past 5 years. And so their whole team is like aging into their prime. So like, I think that there's a pretty good argument actually that Arsenal right now are the best team in the league. Like if you had to predict, who would be the best team over the next month, like I think Arsenal are playing the best of Liverpool, City, and Arsenal. And you have that fact. And then you have the fact that this team is way younger than Liverpool and City. So like Arsenal could really not sign anyone, in my opinion, and they could still improve next year and the year after that because of the age of their players, while Liverpool and City are sort of these prime age teams that are going to have to get younger players in if they want to sort of have the same longer term improvement that I think is pretty much inevitable with Arsenal.
All right. So what do you think of everything that Ryan's just had to say there, Janusz?
Way younger than Liverpool.
Well,
Liverpool
way younger. Maybe if you look at that final.
Well, yeah, that's
well, those are. Well, we're looking forward, right? I mean, this Liverpool team may be there for ages. Although, one difference is that Arteta is staying. He's going to continue this rapid rise, which is incredible, and Jurgen Klopp isn't. So that's a major difference, and that's a difference that I think hasn't gone unnoticed by Arsenal and Arteta, because margins are small, and we've seen Liverpool at absolutely best still not being able to win against Manchester City in years past. They've won it, of course, once. So it's a fine line, and the margins are very, very small. But I think Arsenal at this moment has everything to win it in the future. You've mentioned Saka. If he's not world class, he's very close, because what he does is incredible. I mean, he lives football as we've seen it. That's important to me. You have players all over the pitch that have incredible understanding of what's at stake. Defensively sound. We know set pieces, absolutely incredible. They're missing maybe one or two or three pieces there, but let's not forget Jurrien Timber is going to come back, and he gives you incredible amount of options how to play and how to make that defense even better, right? You look at Jakub Kiwior, who's out of nowhere, coming from Spezia, and you look at 25 million, as a center back's playing left back. Timber can play everywhere. Tomiyasu, when he's back, he's going to give you something somewhere. So look, I mean, the future is bright, given the fact that, Klopp is leaving. So that changes things perhaps, right? Pep Guardiola is not going to be there forever. So if you an Arsenal fan, you'd have to think that in the near future, like you said, there's a big trophy somewhere there to be had.
How does it come then, Janusz? Do you just have to keep doing what you're doing and it's going to pay off eventually?
No, you got to be smart also in how to challenge these players, right? I mean, because we've seen that maybe that level of sophistication sometimes. I mean, here's a team. How many goals they scored? 25, 6 in 6 games. I don't know, in the Premier League. But they didn't score in Porto. Maybe it went off, but maybe that one player is missing, right? When Saka and Martinelli are off. Martinelli maybe a little bit more than others. So, that central forward, given the amount of goals they scored, you could say it's not needed. But I would add, I don't know, Dusan Vlahovic, to me, fits in that team before maybe Ivan Toney and Osimhen, and some of it's money, and some of it's age in those. But I like what I see there. A left-footed player that would fit nicely there. I look at players like, for example, in the wide areas to maybe challenge Martinelli and maybe even challenge Saka. I look at Pedro Neto. I like him for Liverpool as well. I do know that he's injury prone, but he's an incredible player that, it's not, who's to say that's always going to be injured. Maybe he's the one. Maybe Karu Mitoma, another player that would fit Arsenal very, very well. They probably need a left back. I do think that they need somebody special there, because Kiwior can play there. Zinchenko, I don't know how much left he's got. So I'm going to throw Grimaldo from Leverkusen, a player that may be of age, 28, but incredible. I've mentioned Arsenal being great on set pieces, so why not add to that? So, yeah, 2 or 3 players to challenge the rest, and I think Arsenal is going to be in that race for the title year in and year out.
Let's quickly touch then on a team that have spent a lot of money on players, but it's not quite paying off. Chelsea, who recently lost the Carabao Cup final. I want to take the Chelsea angle here and have a quick word, Ryan, on Mauricio Pochettino. Are you okay with him saying that he was happy for his players, and he thought his players were okay to wait for it to go to penalties, and that would have been all right for them.
It's one of the more bizarre, potentially more bizarre than all the stuff I said that I found bizarre that Ten Hag was saying earlier. Like anyone watching the game, Liverpool came into the game as sizable favorites. I think part of that was because it wasn't clear that everyone was going to be injured, but even once the injuries were clear, Liverpool were the better team in the first half. But then Liverpool had played a game on Wednesday. They had no subs beyond their academy players. They brought in all their academy players, and Chelsea just dominated the last 20 minutes. And the talking point was, wow, Liverpool were favorites coming into the game, but now we'd all be shocked if Chelsea doesn't end up winning. And then Liverpool were the better team in extra time. And so Pochettino talked about the team being tired, which one, Liverpool had played on Wednesday and Chelsea hadn't, and two, the entire front line for Chelsea, Nkunku, Mudryk, and Madueke, were all like players that were subbed in. So yeah, I just found that it fit that he said that because of how they played, I guess. Like it made sense, but yeah, it was a massive lost opportunity for Chelsea, and the fact that he said that, I honestly don't understand it.
Janusz?
It's the worst thing that happened to him in the final. It's crazy, and it's maybe a coincidence, but one excuse that Pochettino always had was, the young and experienced players. And look what happens with Liverpool. I mean, look at the difference in those 30 minutes. Look at the hunger of those young players like McConnell, Jadon Dance, Bobby Clark that coming in, and you look at Nkunku, Mudryk, Madueke. I have to read here. Those players coming in a game that towards the end of that they dominated, and everybody was waiting for Chelsea to score that one all-important goal, and it would have been done and dusted. And it's a different narrative now. I think that you can't use that, and the hunger is different. That academy thing is going to get maybe tiresome for some, but there's a massive difference of players growing up in a club, and just imagine coming to that, not even thinking. I mean, those players would be happy with one appearance for the senior club, right? And the opposite side is Chelsea with all those players, very, very young, who I don't want to say don't care for the club, but certainly came from elsewhere. They don't bleed Chelsea blue like some of these players. They certainly came for a lot of money. They're making so much more than some of the Liverpool players that I've mentioned. And imagine that experience. So if you poach right now, where do you go from here? Where, really? I mean, to me, he's lost the one and only argument that he had. And I think what he saw from his team, deep down, he'd be massively disappointed because they didn't show the hunger to win it. They really didn't. And I think from the beginning, given what he knew about the team when he saw the starting 11, I think if I were Poch, my message to the team from the off would have been, we're going for it. Because even if we lose it, nobody's going to question that. And I just think that he was pragmatic and paid the price for it in extra time.